Bar for bar album reviews. L'Orange and Namir Blade, Imaginary Everything. Imaginary Everything is the latest collaborative project from North Carolina producer L'Orange and Nashville rapper Namir Blade. And if I'm pronouncing your names incorrectly, I am so sorry. This is the first full album from Namir Blade that I've listened to, with my main prior exposure to him being the Mello Music Group anthology Bushido, as well as a couple of tracks from his last albums. L'Orange, on the other hand, I'm quite a bit more familiar with, as the first time I checked him out was in 2015 on his album with Jerimiah Jae, The Night Took Us In Like Family, as well as his many recent releases. With that said, I had somewhat of an idea of what sort of sound that we would be getting with this project, which would be more jazzy, kind of boom bap sort of sound, but that's only a part of what we got here. Throughout this album, we also get a bunch of different guitar riffs, as well as a more psychedelic and bluesy sort of sounds, all of which Namir handles beautifully. The album comes in at a total runtime of 35 minutes with 13 tracks, so it's a pretty quick listen for sure, and is one of those albums that I never really realized is almost over until the last song. One thing to make note of before I get too into the review is that this album is definitely not for everyone. I enjoyed it because of the production, subject matters, and all the random nerdy references. So if the production style that I mentioned before, as well as the many references to things like anime and Harry Potter aren't your thing, you may not enjoy it as much. I guess a better way to put it is if you like people like Open Mike Eagle, Clear Soul Forces, Mega Ran, or any of the many people that L'Orange has collaborated with, or if you're just a fan of Mello Music Group, you'll have a great time. The album starts off with the title track, Imaginary Everything. It's definitely an interesting introduction to the album, as it's one of the slower songs, but I do feel it draws you in, especially if you're not too familiar with Namir, because you really have no idea if he actually has a $5,000 mink, or if he actually thinks that it's worth more than us, the listener. A lot of the track is really just braggadocio though, which is always fun, especially when it's delivered so calmly. It makes us feel like he's just speaking the truth. The next track, Lyra, builds upon Imaginary Everything with a slightly more upbeat sounding instrumental. The track itself sounds a bit melancholy. It starts off with Namir saying that we're living on borrowed time and that all he knows is to fall in line, which makes it sound a bit depressing, really. However, things start to shift a little bit when he talks about gossip and lies. He calls those things atrocious and then proceeds to let us know that his resume is all cap. I guess that kind of goes into the whole fake it till you make it sort of idea though, which can totally work to some people's benefits. That line about his resume being all cap really just makes you question what he's saying throughout the rest of the song, as well as the lines leading up to it and the rest of the album actually. Namir's verse ends at the minute 47 mark or so, leaving us with another minute of the track, which is just strictly instrumental. I really like this because the beat is dope, but also remember that this is a collab project. If all we got were verses without letting the instrumental breathe on its own, it'd still be good, but the producer might get ignored or forgotten about. This then brings us to Nihilism, which has one of my favorite choruses, strictly due to how Namir sings the word Nihilism. Nihilism, if you aren't aware, is the rejection of all religious and moral principles in the belief that life is meaningless, although you could probably gather that much just from the song itself. It feels like, at least based on the chorus, something may have happened to a relationship between Namir and someone else, which has left him saying, nothing changes, nothing matters. The beat here is pretty fitting, but I can tell that some people might not enjoy it as much because it's not so hip-hop sounding. I dig it though. Point to Point brings in our first guest feature of the project, and it is from none other than Quelle Chris. The track is pretty straightforward and lets us know that there's a lot of things going on in his life. He's bouncing from point to point and can't keep track of where he is, where he was, and what he's doing. It's cool though. That happens and just kind of a part of life sometimes, I feel. The chorus is really fun too and carries on a bouncy sort of sound, which he kicks off by saying bounce, bounce, bounce. The entirety of his verse, post-chorus, just sounds so good, and the rhyme pattern is definitely unique. Christopher carries this nonchalant, I'm lost and don't even know what day it is sort of vibe, with the opening lines to his verse that says, I'll be there when I need me to be. That accompanied by his flow here really just do a good job of rounding out the track. This then takes us to the shortest track on the album, Out East. The track kind of sounds like a continuation of the first track, Imaginary Everything, in the sense that he's telling a bit of a story to which the listeners say they're not buying it. I'm not sure though. It also feels a little out of place because of the chorus, but it's not bad. The first single for the album, Corner Store Scandal, has Namir telling us a story about a corner store scandal and his possible involvement in it. I think the gist of it is that he just wants a bag full of money for him and his homies, because it'll be good for his health. Honestly, it's just a fun song, and having it accompanied by the music video just makes it so much better. Gassed Up brings another rap feature with Fly Anakin and production that's reminiscent of one of L'Orange's other songs with Jerimiah Jae, Ice Obsidian. The track is super smooth with a pretty simple sounding bass line, but I think that's what makes it better. Both Namir and Fly Anakin flow well on this beat and rap with conviction. They're both rapping with a lot of braggadocio as well, but like on Point to Point, the flow just makes it feel so nonchalant and almost passive. This isn't a bad thing though. It's different and I fully enjoy it, especially on this sort of production. It makes it feel a bit more unique when compared to the other braggadocious tracks that we get. Next, we have Shotgun, which has another one of my favorite choruses again, just because of the way Namir Blade sings Shotgun. It's also fun because the first few lines are in reference to McCree from Overwatch, and the ending makes a reference to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. These are just some of the more obvious references on the album, like I mentioned at the top. There's way more throughout the project, though. I like the production here as well as the vocal inflections that Namir adds in, just as it adds to the track for me. It just makes it more full. I also like the line that says, "Ain't no passing my passion, rap till I'm passing out," because it shows you that he's actually here to rap. It's his passion, so why would he pass on it? It's also just something that we can apply to ourselves, the listener. If we're passionate about something, we shouldn't just pass on it. I guess it does come down to finding a balance and being able to provide for yourself, because not everyone is going to be successful immediately, but if it is something that you're truly passionate about, you'll probably find a way. Somebody's Anthem, to me, is a track where Namir kind of goes through this stream of thought. These thoughts may be things that he's thinking of in his day-to-day, but could be someone else's entirely, hence naming it Somebody's Anthem. The way it ends does make it sound like it's more about him though, so I could be wrong there. It could just be him putting on a display what his thoughts are while he's doing whatever he needs to do to get his money and keep the paper up, which has the chorus making a little bit more sense. I mean, the chorus goes, "Good morning USA, you gotta get off your ass and get it," almost as if it's what the national anthem is now. It makes sense though, because we can't really just sit idly by and hope things will go the way we want them to, whether in regards to money or just issues in general. If there's a change that we want to see happen, sometimes we have to go out and push for it, because we all know no one else is going to change anything. It could also just be going a little into the idea that most people can't afford anything, and the chorus is being sung from all the people with money, telling everyone to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, even though there are systems put in place to stop them from doing just that. Both thoughts might be a bit of a stretch, but maybe. Late Nights, Early Mornings brings us another feature with Jordan Webb. The title of the track is likely in reference to the late nights and early mornings that they've both had to experience to further their careers. I mean, generally the image of rappers is often that they're in the studio late nights, and then the next day they're able to keep it pushing and do interviews in the morning. However, that kind of goes out the window when Namir says he wakes up at like 12:30, which makes me think that instead the title is more directed towards the people who criticize others for staying up late and not waking up early. This makes Jordan Webb's verse make a little bit more sense with his Gohan time skip reference. Just because you don't see what's happening doesn't mean that things aren't moving and happening. Although, using Gohan as a reference for how good you are after a time skip might not be the best choice, because I'm pretty sure many people feel that Gohan lost all of his potential immediately after the Cell Saga and peaked as Teen Gohan, but that's not the discussion that we're supposed to be having right now. Things return to a more melancholy and psychedelic sort of vibe, from the instrumental panning at least, with Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law is basically the idea that whatever can go wrong will go wrong, and that's exactly what we get with this track. Throughout, Namir brings up a lot of seemingly random things that could go wrong, whether in regards to people around him or just the sights that he's seen. We do get a bit more singing on the chorus with, "Well, this gonna be a bad, bad day." which is pretty solid too. The singing carries on to the next track, I Can Change. This is another of the shortest songs on the album, and I feel like its purpose, similar to the others, is to try something different. The subject matter is pretty straightforward, and it's about him saying that he can change. However, if he did change, he feels that the end results would be the same. The majority of the track is just really Namir harmonizing though, which might sound weird when I'm describing it, but it works really well. Especially because it's so close to the end of the album. It's kind of like signaling the end. The final track, though, is Pipe Dream, and it has Marlo as a credited feature, which is really just L'Orange and Solemn Brigham. I really like this as an end track because it feels hopeful. A pipe dream is basically a seemingly unattainable goal that often people will tell you just to forget and move on from. In this case, the pipe dream is probably meant to be their careers. In the early days, I'm sure there were plenty of people who would be like, nah, just drop it. This is just a pipe dream. What are you doing? But they persevered and still make music today. The thing that really gets stuck in my head, I guess, is the chorus, where Namir just goes, boom, 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 boom. Just because it's him making sounds to the beat, and it just feels lighthearted and fun. Overall, I really enjoyed this album. It's definitely not what most people would listen to, so I can understand if it's not for you. But I thought it was fun and well done. The production was really never a concern to me, being somewhat familiar with L'Orange's previous work, but since this was really my first full exposure to Namir Blade, I guess I was a little bit more concerned there. However, I am happy to say that those concerns were unnecessary. I've said it before and I'll keep saying it, but whenever a rapper and producer work together for an entire album, we're usually in for a treat, and this is no different. There's something about just having that collaboration that really allows both parties to bring out the best in each other for that particular project. And although there are aspects of L'Orange's typical production, there's still differences throughout, which is fun. My favorite tracks on the album are Point to Point, Corner Store Scandal, Gassed Up, Murphy's Law, and Pipe Dream. Again, as this was my first real exposure to Namir Blade's music, I was thoroughly impressed. And as always, L'Orange brings in some dope production. But I guess you just can't go wrong with Mello Music Group. With that said, let me know in the comments below what you thought of this album, and if you haven't listened to it, maybe check it out. Also remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more reviews and content like this. Thank you for watching, and please stay safe out there.